Good afternoon, international leaders. Today at this international summit, I, Hajar Shikoslami, will be representing Iran. Introduction. Iran. Iran is also known as the Islamic Republic of Iran. Iran is a mountainous country in West Asia filled with a diverse landscape. There are rugged mountains in the west, central deserts, and coastal plains along the Caspian Sea and Persian Gulf. The people are ethnically diverse, with Turkish, Kurdish, and Arab groups all consisting within the Persian state. Iran is a very resource-rich country with oil, arable land, natural gas, and minerals like zinc and iron. But the Iranian government's corruption prevents the people from being able to benefit from any of the country's natural resources, leading to declining economy. Main issues. Corruption. Iran's corruption is embedded in the fabric of Iran's political order. The Transparency International Corruption Perceptions Index ranks Iran 151st out of 180 countries. This corruption is used as an instrument of national strategy, which is an essential component of governments within the Islamic Republic. The corruption began with the Iranian Revolution that took place in 1979. Culminating in the overthrow of the monarchy and the establishment of the Islamic Republic, ruled by a theocratic government. There was a return to conservative social values in alignment with strict Islamic law. So this graph here just highlights the levels of inflation within the Iranian state in accordance with the years. It dips down in 2017 because that was the introduction of the JCPOA, but it increases back in 2018 because that is when the Donald Trump and his administration withdrew themselves from the order. So corruption as well. The economy. Pre-revolution. In 1960, Iran was the world's 29th largest economy, whilst experiencing rapid economic growth fueled by petroleum revenues. As a result of the Iranian Revolution, Iran faced international isolation from the international community, thus hampering its access to technology and foreign investment. With inclined population growth and agricultural productions consistently falling, Iran's economy faced high levels of unemployment and inflation. My fellow international leaders, the main issue I will currently be discussing is that Iran is currently facing economic struggle with hyperinflation. Iran consists of 14% of the world's oil and gas revenue. Economically speaking, the country should be prosperous. Yet decades of mismanagement, corruption, and financial irresponsibility have left the clerical dictatorship prioritizing political survival over economic stability, leaving millions struggling with inflation, poverty, currency collapse, and exponential decline in living standards. The Maximum Pressure campaign traps the Iranian economy in a relentless cycle of inflation, as recorded by the latest Consumer Price Index data for March 2025. Iranian inflation has a monthly increase of 3.3% and an annual rate of 37.1%, a long-standing pattern since the 1979 revolution. Internal factors. There is a chronic fiscal irresponsibility in Iran, as the government spends more money than it earns, thus grasping at straws and often borrowing or printing money to cover the gap, resulting in persistent budget deficits. The Iranian regime frequently finances the deficits by borrowing from the central bank, which leads to a continuous expansion in the monetary base. This reflects a broader pattern of fiscal indiscipline within the current policy and political framework. The unchecked growth of the money supply has fueled inflationary pressures, eroding purchasing power and contributing to economic instability. In order to compound fiscal challenges, the Central Bank of Iran faces severe institutional limitations. Hence, its lack of independence undermines the credibility and effectiveness of controlling money supply. Dr. Saeed Qasemi, a senior advisor for Iran who specializes in the Iranian economy, remarks that the Central Bank of Iran operates under an outdated regulatory framework and weak supervisory systems, constraining its capacity to execute impactful monetary policies. The Iranian government additionally allocates funds from the National Development Fund, which was founded by the Islamic Republic in 2011 to support long-term development projects. As a result, skimming from this fund diverts resources from critical infrastructures and investments, and shows the corrupt system prioritizes short-term fiscal reliance upon sustainable economic growth. Political parties make economic decisions based on political goals rather than the country's economic state. External factors. Prolonged sanctions and political isolations, strained foreign relations, and the restrictions amplify Iran's economic vulnerabilities within the global community. These limitations result in a detrimental exchange rate that is shown by the persistent depreciation of the Iranian rial in unofficial markets. Effect on the people. The inflation rate drastically impacts essential commodities, persistently diminishing the living standards for the majority of the Iranian population. Millions of Iranian incomes have steadily declined, savings have eroded, and economic opportunities remain limited. Iranian manufacturers struggle with the unpredictable costs, and many households continue to abandon the national currency. Millions of middle class Iranians are forced into poverty as the minimum wage fails to rise with the increased cost of living. Since 1979, the Iranian economic growth rate has fallen behind pre revolution rates and regional and global benchmarks. The real GDP per capita has yet to surpass its pre revolutionary peak, highlighting decades of lost potential and economic regression. In 2005, 890 rials are now equivalent to 81,000 rials today, forcing Iranians to invest in hard assets like gold and foreign currencies. Past and present. The past. The rial has lost 99% of its value against the US dollar since 2005. From 2005 to 2015, the Iranian economy suffered because of the sanctions on its energy sector, leading to years of recession, currency depreciation, and inflation. The JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, was an agreement to have Iran dismantle much of its nuclear program and allow extensive international inspections in exchange for billions of dollars worth of sanctions relief. In early 2016, the Obama administration dropped secondary sanctions in the oil sector, allowing Iran to increase its oil exports to nearly the level it reached prior to the sanctions. The US and many EU nations unfroze $100 billion worth of frozen Iranian assets. When the sanctions were lifted, inflation slowed, exchange rates stabilized, and oil, agricultural goods, and luxury item exports skyrocketed as Iran regained trading partners in the EU. Iran began exporting more than 2.1 million barrels of oil per day. The most detrimental effect on the Iranian economy took place in 2018, when President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal with world powers that were lifted under the JCPOA. Iran's banks were cut off from the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, with the global financial messaging system. These sanctions targeted critical sectors of Iran's economy: energy, shipping and shipbuilding, and financial sectors. The present. The inflation rate has remained above 30% for 57 straight months. The 20th century will be marked as a global period of absolute poverty. Iranian poverty rates are among the lowest in the Middle East and North African region in the world. 1 in every 5 Iranians lives below the national poverty line, and more than 40% live on less than $10 a day per person. Iranian workers' wages need to be increased by up to 70% to become a livable wage and keep up with the soaring inflation rates. Type of issue. Although this issue, the hyperinflation, is an economic one, hyperinflation stems politically. The hyperinflation that Iran faces is a political issue. Iran's economy began to deteriorate after the 1979 revolution. The change in government that led to a wide-stage corruption leaches into a theocratic authoritarianism. As I mentioned before, because of the Iranian theocracy, political officials often sacrifice the people's need for political gain, as shown through spending billions of dollars in nuclear programs, missile programs, regional interventions, and proxy groups, all simultaneously draining the economy. Iran's hyperinflation is a national issue, affecting every person and condemning millions below the poverty line every year. Stakeholders and points of view. The first stakeholder we have is the Iranian government. So Iran focuses on enhancing its military budgets, sustaining regional proxies, and extending deterrence capabilities. Increased sanctions from the US and EU have led to an increase in Iran's military spending. To demonstrate that sanctions do not affect its defensive capabilities, in 2023, Iran's military spending was $10.3 billion, with a 200% increase in the next year. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, Iran intends to maintain a strong defense and offense in regards to Israel, to be prepared to respond to any regional military provocations or preemptive strikes. Additionally, the Iranian government allocated more than $600 million to its propaganda activities in the current calendar year, whilst in a deep economic crisis. The U.S. government. So the U.S. issues sanctions on Iran primarily because of the Iranian nuclear program. So sanctions are used to prevent Iran's nuclear ambitions and the development of nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapon programs prevent the extremely dangerous possibility of nuclear proliferation, which is basically the spread of nuclear weapons or technologies to countries that do not have access to them. The U.S.'s biggest concern is that Iran's possession of nuclear weapons would lead to a regime that leads to the chance of death to America or death to Israel. The Iranian people. The Iranian propaganda budget is paid through printing money that thus fuels more than 50% of annual inflation, which has impoverished tens of millions of people in the past 5 years. The increased military spending by the Iranian government is at risk of the people. The people suffer from the actions of the U.S. sanctions under Iranian inflation. The people suffer from poverty. It is the people who are affected firsthand. Current events. So, from June 10th, 2025, a nuclear deal with Iran could generate billions for the U.S. economy. If done right, an agreement would be a boon for new export markets, supporting jobs and high-value returns for American industry. So, in summary, the U.S. demands zero enrichment whilst Iran insists on enrichment rights without pursuing weapons. Sanctions and military threats are the strategies that the U.S. has been following in the past, but history shows that these tactics fail and only push Iran further to seek nuclear weapons. Instead, economic incentives are essential for diplomacy. Directly linking benefits to Iran's verified compliance will aid both economies, drastic and enhancing security. Sanctions hurt the Iranian people, whilst the Iranian government continuously exports its nuclear capacity and evasion capabilities. Iran's economy has the opportunity to grow, as shown by its rich resources. By linking economic benefits to nuclear compliance, both Iranian and American stakeholders will thrive through long-term success. President Trump can selectively license up to $25 billion in annual U.S. exports and enable U.S.-owned subsidiaries to engage with up to $4 trillion in untapped Iranian investment opportunities by 2040. Trade with Iran could generate 200,000 U.S. jobs. U.S. manufacturers and farmers would benefit from trade. There will be mutual economic stakes in compliance. Washington must choose between failed sanctions for an incentive-based policy that brings nuclear security, regional stability, and economic gains for American workers. There are currently no initiatives applicable to combat Iran's hyperinflation. Who is affected / why should we care? So, Iran's hyperinflation affects the people firsthand, but the global sanctions imposed by the US and EU have negative consequences on your economies as well. As mentioned before, Iran holds 208 billion barrels of oil, accounting for 10% of the world's total proven oil reserves. The rest of the world is freezing billions of dollars that can be used for foreign investment, oil production, job creation, technological transfers, and increased economic activities for both parties. Iran's hyperinflation should be solved because of a moral obligation we have as an international community to combat government corruption. The Iranian government continuously commits crimes against humanity because no secondary source would ever dare to go against their choices. All people, including Iranians, deserve to live a life with freedom and to be able to work in an economy that will lead to prosperity instead of being forced into poverty as hyperinflation increases. The second reason why Iran should be the chosen recipient of the funds is because of foreign oil dependence. The United States and EU both rely on imported petroleum and crude oil to meet their energy needs. The US is dependent on oil to fuel vehicles and heat homes and is the largest oil consumer in the world. Iran has the resources to help the international community with its oil reserves, and allowing Iran to do so will lead to both the Iranian economy prosperity and global dependence on oil will be eased. What can we do? There needs to be a paradigm shift in how the Iranian economy is handled, as government corruption is one of the root causes of hyperinflation. There can be strained independence in the central bank to ensure monetary policy decisions are made in the economic favor over the political aspect, and then this controls the money supply and can reduce inflation. Lastly, working with global powers and promoting alliances that promote foreign exchange with Iran boosts the global economy, allowing for economic prosperity for all. Referring to the article I mentioned, all U.S. sanctions do not need to be raised, but allowing a 5-year license for U.S. subsidiaries could open Iran's market, offering major investment returns and leverage over Iran. Giving Iran access and allowing there to be international exports with Iran's natural resources benefits every major country in the world. Combating Iran's hyperinflation will help every economy, every person, every country, and it all. Thank you.